Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After you run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A, where we answer fans' questions, and we have a lot to talk about today's show. A lot of really positive news, especially about the offense, which is really going to be fun to talk about because I think we've been pretty negative on the offense the past few weeks, and there was a lot of interesting stuff that we did in this game that I think we can definitely build off of and hopefully continue to do. And I think Tua's numbers will be significantly better because of it. And I think his play will be not only consistent but significantly better than what we've seen. And I think you saw that in this game. So I'm excited to talk about that. So let's get into the news you need to know about. This first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Devontae Parker, Matt Collins, and Xavier Howard were not suspended by the league. They were fined. I don't think X was fined, but I think Mac and Devontae Parker were fined. So if you were worried about them getting suspended for the Kansas City game, they will be present for that game. The only Bengal that was suspended from the entire situation, and really the only player that was suspended, which is kind of weird, is Preston Williams, who kind of started a lot of stuff in that game, and also not only did he start some stuff, and I think he did actually elbow Devontae Parker in the head, but he also stepped on Solomon Kinley as well. So if you guys were there's more dirty plays in that game than I even thought. Very chippy game, but if you guys were wondering if those guys were going to play against Kansas City, they are, so you don't have to worry about that as long as they're healthy, and they should all be pretty healthy in that game. In the Kansas City game. This next news story, not the last one, got two more after this one. Dolphins did, and you guys know this already, but I do want to bring it up. Dolphins activated Myles Gaskin for the Bengals game, which paid off big time in that game. He had a great game. You can really tell the difference between the talent levels of the other guys on the roster. Myles Gaskin, I think, is by far the best running back. I said Ahmed might be a little bit more of a gifted athlete, but Gaskin is a better player. He's better in pass protection. He's way better, and you could see that because the blitz pickups are way better in this game. And he's a great receiving back, great feel for the game in that area, and he runs with a lot of power too. And I think that's an underrated part of his game. And he's great vision. He can make people miss in short spaces because of his size and his quickness. He just brings a lot of versatility and playmaking to the position, really to the offense that we don't have, and I thought he played wonderfully. So I wanted to bring that up. Not really a news story, but I just wanted to really give Myles Gaskin his due. And I think he can make up for a lot of those yards that we're missing from the slot receiver position, even though I thought someone stepped up big time in that position. We'll talk about that when we get into the game. So I just wanted to bring up Myles Gaskin. Obviously, you guys know who he was. You guys watched the game, but I thought it was interesting how you could really just tell the difference in the way the offense and some of the play calling as well, and how much harder it is to defend us when he's in the lineup. So let's get into the next news story, and this is a news story that everybody wants to know about, and this is an update on Preston Williams. And this is the only thing I could find on it. This comes from FantasySports.com, and this quote is from Cameron Wolfe of ESPN. He said, quote, "There is no guarantee that Dolphins wide receiver Preston Williams' foot plays again this season." And this is another quote we have here. This is also from Cameron Wolfe. He says, "The injury," quote, "wasn't minor. Devontae Parker continues to see an increased..." Okay, so that part's not important, but Williams hasn't played since week 9, and Cameron Wolfe says, quote, "The injury wasn't minor. There is," again, he goes on to say, "there is no guarantee that he will come back this season." So based off of that, this report was published 3 days ago. So based off of this, I don't think he might not come back. If we make the playoffs, I could see him coming back, maybe. But the regular season, I don't know. Hopefully he does come back. Obviously he's a big weapon for us, and he's a big weapon for Tua as well. They seem to have really good chemistry, their short time together. I think we don't talk about him as much for whatever reason. I mean, he definitely could have helped us in the Denver game. He gives the defense another big, physical, underrated route runner. And I was excited to see what he could do with Tua, and obviously he's been injured. So I don't know. I don't see him. I don't know. I just don't feel good about the situation. Hopefully he does come back. I mean, I think we'll know if he'll come back this season. If he doesn't come back against the Raiders, here's what I'll say. If he doesn't come back against the Patriots, then I don't think there's a shot he returns this entire season. But I don't know. I still feel like against New England at home, I think that's a good spot where he could come back. It's another thing to keep your guys' eye on, to keep up with. We'll see how that works out. But again, if we do get him back, it adds another problem for defenses to especially in the red zone. He's really good in the red zone. And I was excited to see if we maybe could try him in the slot. There's a lot of things you can do with Preston Williams, and he's very talented. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But that's your update again. To repeat what I said, there is, quote, no guarantee that it will return this season, and, quote, his injury was not minor. And that comes from fantasysports/ESPN.com. And that's really all I could find on Preston Williams. And again, that was published 3 days ago. That's it for the news, ladies and gentlemen. I think we covered it, all of it, pretty good there. So let's get into the game. And there's a lot to talk about in this game. I know the score wasn't that crazy, but I mean, I'm fairly confident, especially in the second half. I mean, we dominated this game. The defense was dominant the entire game. If it wasn't for one really nice play and kind of lucky play for the Bengals with Tyler Boyd. But yeah, the overall feel of this game, I felt like there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to touch on, and a lot of things we can build off offensively. So we'll probably save offense for last. We'll start with the defense. Here's a cool stat that I had to remember. I was like, I have to remember this for the podcast because I'm not going to be able to find the stat, but there were 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins had allowed, as a defense, in the second half, the total offense for the Bengals in the second half I'm sorry, guys. I know I've just completely butchered it. Let me restart this entire thing. So, again, we're talking about the defense. With 7 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter, the Bengals had a total offense of -8 yards, which is crazy. So, up until that point, the Dolphins had only allowed in the second half -8 yards, which is crazy. They completely destroyed the Bengals' offensive line. It was a huge mismatch. I mean, going into the game, I think that's one of the things that was a huge advantage for the Dolphins is their front. I felt like was just gonna destroy the Bengals' front because it's not very talented, especially I think on the right side of the Bengals' offensive line is very weak. And you could see that in this game. The Dolphins had a lot of success with stunts in this game. And Calvin has been good at that all year. And to be that dominant, though, against an NFL team to only allow, with 7 minutes to go left in the game, the Bengals had a total of, in the second half, not counting the first half, in the second half they had a total of -8 yards, which is just a crazy stat. So I had to remember that because that's an insane stat. Brandon Allen was captain checkdown in this game. That was really the game plan for the Bengals. A lot of short stuff. Get the ball out of your hands quickly. They had a couple of nice play designs where if it's executed right, it could really hurt some of our blitzes. And you saw that with the Tyler Boyd play. It was kind of a pick play, and really a screen. It was like a short out or a flat to Boyd, like a little bit of a hot read on a short yardage situation. Drew Sample he was in front of him. I don't know if that was on purpose, if that was actually a good play design, or it just kind of fell that way. I'm assuming it was because they, obviously they had the game plan for that blitz, and it was a nice little play. So they tried to do, and another thing the Bengals tried to do that I thought was really awesome by the Dolphins coaching staff and really adjusting, and not letting the same thing beat them week in, week out. The Broncos ran a lot of shotgun, and that was where bootlegs against the Broncos and pulling tackles and guards on like an unbalanced formation in the shotgun and running behind it with a smaller running back like Phillip Lindsay. And the Bengals have similar personnel with Bernard, who's a smaller running back. They try to do the same thing to get the run game going, and we completely stuffed it. They ran it like 3 times in that game. Very similar play, same idea. Didn't work, so I was really happy to see that, and again, it's a testament to how this coaching staff and continues to get better each week and doesn't let the same thing beat them. And of course, under center stuff was completely out of the question in this game. The Bengals ran not a lot, but mainly in the first half when they had the lead, they ran some bootlegs under center, and they tried to hit Drew Sample and some of those guys in the flat to really get their passing game going, and that didn't work either. Jerome Baker with a nice little adjustment right there, pretty much stuffed all that himself. And especially when Eric Rowe came back, I mean, the tight end stuff was over. And Brandon Jones played really well in Eric Rowe when he was getting tested for concussion. Brandon Jones stepped in and he was having a really good rookie season. He's going to be very good for a long time. And again, this is a rookie safety we're talking about, and he doesn't play like it at all. He's very good. And, that's something that everybody talked about with him coming out of Texas is he just studied every NFL defense, and you can tell. That's not something that, usually when you hear that, it's like, all right, whatever. I mean, you hear that kind of stuff all the time, and it never really, it's like, whatever. It's something, this kid's really smart, or this dude's really smart, and it never really adds up to anything. And Brandon Jones is actually smart. Like, he's well beyond his years for someone who's a rookie, and he's playing safety. And he just makes a lot of plays. He plays very fast, too, for a rookie. And he never hasn't. Like, ever since he's played, he's never really played like that, which is crazy. So Brandon Jones he's very good, and he's going to be very good for a long time. And he's good in coverage, and that's something that he did at Texas, and we've talked about this before, where he really fits the scheme, and Chris Grier's done a really good job of drafting players that fit the scheme. Because, at Texas, he lined up against the slot receiver. He played free safety. He played strong safety. He was a man against the tight end, which is a textbook type of player for this defense. And he's blossomed, and he's played very well in this defense. I mean, I could just go on and on about this defense. I think the main takeaway of this game is Zach Taylor tried to do some things that he saw on tape that worked against this defense, against Denver, and even in New York a little bit against the Jets. And the Dolphins have clearly worked on that, and it didn't work. Which I really, really, really thought was interesting. And other than that, it was just complete dominance by the Dolphins secondary and defensive front. Their leading receiver was Tyler Boyd on that one catch. He had one catch for 72 yards and a touchdown. T. Higgins, if you watched the game, it felt like more than it actually was, but it was only 5 receptions for 56. And Drew Sample caught a bunch of tight end screens, basically, for 7 yards for 49, or 7 catches for 49 yards. He didn't really do anything either. So yeah, the secondary, the defense, again, with 7 minutes to go in the fourth quarter in this game, in terms of total yards in the second half, they only allowed -8 yards. So that's the kind of day the Dolphins defense had. They were very good and very prepared. And another thing I want to touch on before we move on from this defense, Brian Flores, and this is something that the Dolphins have done in the past. They've always, and this is something that all of you guys know well, teams that have looked good against good teams in Dolphins teams past have always lost these games. I can bring up a million different. The best example of it is in 2013 when the Dolphins had that crazy 3-game win streak. They just beat New England at home. They beat the Steelers in Heinz Field, snowy. All they had to do was beat the really bad Jets, and they're in the playoffs, and they couldn't do it. They always lost to the bad teams when they needed to win those teams. The teams they should have beat, they never beat. The teams they shouldn't have beat, they beat. Basically, that's probably the biggest story of the Tannehill era when it comes to would-be playoff appearances that could have happened. This is different. Brian Flores has this team ready to go, and they play hard. It doesn't matter who they play. They want to beat you, and they're always prepared. They never play down to their competition. And I think that's another example of how different this is than past regimes. And this is another good example of that, where they were prepared, they were flying around on defense, and this defense played them like they were playing a top 10 offense. I mean, they just completely dominated, and Christian Wilkins is flying around. He's having a great. Speaking of Christian Wilkins, you could tell the difference he makes in the lineup as well. He had a couple of really nice plays in the backfield. 6 sacks on the day for the Dolphins defense. And again, doesn't matter who they play, they're always having fun, always flying around. Again, I think that comes straight from the top and Brian Flores. So let's get into the offensive side of the football. Now, this is the side of the ball that I could not wait to talk about, because there's a lot of stuff in this game, especially in the second half, that I've wanted to see this entire time with Tua, and we finally got to see it, and wouldn't you know it, it worked. So let's start let's just get into it, really. Let's start with the stats first. Mike Gesicki had a career high in receptions with 9, with 88 yards, a touchdown. He averaged 10 yards a catch. Myles Gaskin had a great day receiving. He had 2 receptions for 50 yards. The one, again, this is again, something that we just said like 2 seconds ago, but he has a great feel for the game, and he's very good in the passing game. By far the best receiving back we have. And he sees Tua break outside of the pocket. He feels open space. He gets to it. He executes. He catches the football down to the 2-yard line. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we need. And he brings variety and a different type of playmaker to this offense, which is something that we've talked about before. Jakeem Grant had a really... Dude, we used Jakeem Grant. To me, this is the best we've ever used Jakeem Grant. We're going to get into that here in a second. He had a good day. He had 2 catches, really just on sweeps. And he had a really good day. Lynn Bowden Jr., and this is really where I want to get into the offense. Tua had a career day pretty much. I think he had a career high in yards as well. He had 26 completions. He was 26 of 39 for 296 yards and a touchdown. Gaskins finished the day 21 carries for 90 yards. He literally carried the ball every single time and was amazing. Again, another underrated part of his game, he runs with a lot of power. So this is what I want to start with scheme and Chan Gailey. So in the first half, it's like, okay, we're doing the same thing we've done against the chart, like all the things that I hate. Under center, we're trying to establish the run game. Not a lot of tempo, a lot of huddling around, not playing fast. Very opposite of what we do with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Not very aggressive, kind of conservative. We're playing like a rookie's in there. We're not playing like fast or aggressive or anything. We're playing like we don't want to turn the ball over, basically. For pretty much that entire first half, there was a couple of things that we did, like the bomb to Jakeem Grant that he dropped. That was a really great throw by Tua. It wasn't like we were being super conservative or anything like that. It just wasn't a consistency in the offense. It was like we're kind of in between. We weren't really committing to one side. We weren't playing to our identity like I want us to do, which is up-tempo, aggressive, spread the ball out, get in the shotgun, and let's rock and roll. And in the second half, literally, and this is something that I have said and complained about for many games now, and we finally did it with Tua in the second half, and we went down and scored a touchdown. And you could hear the commentators say it too, where they were like, hey, this is the first time we've really seen Tua run this up-tempo offense, and that's something they usually do with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And he was amazing in it. He moved the ball right down the field. He scored a touchdown through a beautiful pass to Mike Gesicki on a 50-50 ball situation, and had the offense move. And as soon as I was like, dude, the sense there, we've won the game at that point. Because I was like, as soon as I saw Tua execute like that, and this is something that I have questioned, is like, oh, can Tua just not do it? Is that why the reason? And clearly he can, clearly he can, and he did it, and he executed perfectly. And this was a perfect game to do it in, because the Bengals aren't that good, and this is something that he can really kind of get comfortable in. And this is what the team does best: up tempo and pass the football. That's what they do best. That's how they move the football consistently. That's when this offense is at its best. That's the reason Tua was benched against the Broncos. Literally, the quote from what Brian Flores said, and it literally came out of his mouth after the Denver game, was, we benched Tua because we wanted to do the up-tempo thing, and that's what they did with Ryan Fitzpatrick. And what happened? We almost came back and won that game. And we finally did it in this game. And I really want to focus on the passing game, because there's some things in the run game that I want to touch on too that were awesome. But if we play up-tempo like that and add on some of this run game stuff that we're doing, this offense is going to be way better for the remainder of this season. And Tua is going to look way better as well, because they're actually letting him play to the strengths of the team. And it should be, like, if we continue to do this, the offense is going to be a good offense. It's not going to be this stagnant offense that's inconsistent. And they just have to play to the identity of the team, and they did that in the second half. I don't know why it took them so long. I mean, I'm glad that they finally did it, though. I'm not even mad at it. I'm just happy they did it. It looked great. Tua looked great in it. They played fast. It wasn't like, it didn't look. They picked up some blitzes in the second half. I mean, like I said, the pass protection was great in this game, and hopefully they continue to do that. Hopefully Chan Gailey's like, okay, we can do this with Tua. This is where the offense is at its best, and especially the passing game when you go up tempo like that. And it's hard for defenses to play at that speed because the offense is just kind of coming at you, and you kind of just have to react to it, as opposed to, like, when you're huddling and you're getting to the line, the defense can get its calls out. It can audible if it needs to. It can kind of just better react to what you're doing. If you're just going fast, it's a lot harder to get set and react. And the Dolphins can really spread it out and have a lot of good run after the catch players when Gaskin is in, and he's involved in the passing game because he's good after the catch. And Lynn Bowden, who was amazing in the slot. And I want to touch on this before we move on from the passing offense. Lynn Bowden played the Malcolm Perry role. He came back healthy. He's off the COVID list. And, they basically just was like, okay, you're going to do the Malcolm Perry stuff that we've been doing with him in the slot and with the RPO stuff. And he's way better at it because, one, he's got better hands. He's a natural football player. He played in the SEC. He was a receiver / running back in the SEC, so it's not too big for him. And he took advantage of it, and he played amazing in that role. And I think not only does he give, and this is something that we talked about in the passing game, that we have a lot of players that do the same thing. Mike Gesicki is a mismatch nightmare. He's got size. He's fast when he's running in a straight line. And he presents a lot of issues in terms of matching up with him. If you want to play like man coverage, he's a tall, big, great catch radius type of guy. Who does the similar things? Who's very similar in that way is Devontae Parker. He is a 50-50 guy. That's what he does best. And same thing with Mike Gesicki. We don't have a lot of variety in this offense, but when you add Gaskin, when you add Lynn Bowden, and you do the up-tempo thing, that they add that variety. They're good after the catch. They can run. They can get in and out of their breaks faster than those guys can. And like I said, they are shifty after the catch. They can catch a 5-yard pass and turn it into a 15-yard gain. So they add that element of the offense that we were missing, which is the rack yards, which is, hey, I'm going to check it down. And again, there's many different plays and great examples of that where we saw Myles Gaskin get out of a bad situation when we were backed up. We throw a screen to him. He breaks the tackle of Bynes, and he goes up the sideline for 15 yards. That's what this offense was missing, is people who can make plays after the catch. And Gaskin provides that, and so does Lynn Bowden, and he provides a presence in the slot that we didn't have before, and that makes the offense better. It's not samey. It's not two guys really carrying the offense. They add more playmaking to the offense and a variety of different playmaking, and it really opens up the playbook as well, and it allows us to do more stuff. So I'm very excited about the passing game from here on out. Not only are we playing to our identity finally with Tua, which we haven't done yet, and we finally did in the second half of this game, and you saw the difference. And that's going to lead to Tua playing better. His numbers are going to be great. And the offense is going to play way better as well because of it. Now I want to get into the run game because this is also interesting. We talked about it after the Chargers game. This run game is at its best when it's in the shotgun. When you're motioning Jakeem Grant in or motioning Lynn Bowden across the field, that presents problems for the defense. You're moving, you're constantly moving. It's fast. If we hand it off to Jakeem Grant, he could go 90 yards for a touchdown. And you saw it in this game. Like, if Austin Jackson doesn't miss Von Bell on that block, which I don't expect Austin Jackson to run that far downfield and block Von Bell, I'm not saying that's on Austin Jackson, but if he gets even a little bit of them, that's a touchdown. So it presents a ton of issues for the defense. Not to mention when we run that action with people running in the backfield all the time, and we kind of run that read option like play, where Tua could take it, he could hand it off to Grant, or he could just hand it off to Gaskin up the middle, you see run lanes open up. And that's where the run offense and the run game is at its best, is when we do that kind of stuff. And we stopped doing it after the Chargers game. Like, we didn't run that stuff really at all after that game, especially not against the Broncos. And you saw it again in the second half against Cincinnati, and it works. Like, we can really have a consistent run game when we do that, because, again, there's so many different things we can do. Not to mention, we can play action off of it and pass, take a shot downfield. With the RPO stuff or just your standard play actions, you could boot off of that. There's like so many different things you can do off that one action that it really helps out the run game. And I hope they continue to do that as well, because that's when the run game is at its best, as we run that kind of stuff. And it's fun to watch too. It's exactly what the Kansas City Chiefs do with Tyreek Hill and McCole Hardman. That's what they do. That's in the shotgun as well. Like I said, there's you could do 4 different things off of that one action. And it really puts the defense on their heels and gives us a schematic advantage when we do it. And to me, that's when our run game was at the best. That's when the offense was super explosive, because you add all of those elements to the offense, and this offense becomes dangerous. You're utilizing that speed and some of the different abilities of the other guys. And maybe that is because, Lynn Bowden is in the lineup, and we can do some of that stuff, because we did the same thing. And again, another example of us passing off of that action is when we play action, and we did boot Tua, and he hit Devontae Parker on a shorter route, which was like a 5-yard gain on first down, keeping us ahead of the chains. We did it a couple times to Lynn Bowden, where we pulled it out of there, and we hit Lynn Bowden in the flat. He was wide open. There was nobody even near him. Because we can do so many different stuff. I mean, the linebackers alone are going to have a lot of issues with that, and you're going to get positive plays off of that action. Because it's just, there's a lot to defend off of it. And like I said, it presents a lot of issues for the defense. So if we can continue to do that stuff in the run game, which really involves Jakeem Grant, and we really utilize his special speed in that way, that's going to open a lot of run lanes. Not to mention, it's going to help the passing game. And then if we do the up-tempo stuff, which is when the offense is at its best, and it really plays into the identity of the team, and you even saw the offensive line blocked really, really well in the up-tempo stuff too. That's when they're best in pass pro as well. And that's why Fitz gets better pass protection than Tua at times, is because of that up-tempo stuff. So it's positive for every aspect of the offense. Hopefully we continue to do that stuff, and it just doesn't go away and against the Chiefs, because I think if we continue to do that, man, it just makes this offense so much more dangerous. And hats off to Chan Gailey. I love the way he utilizes tight ends as well. He gets them involved in a variety of different ways. He's very creative with them. He does a great job with tight ends, and I just hope he continues. I think he found it. I think he found this is something we can hang our hat on for the remainder of the year, and this is something that we can really do well. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this game, is all the stuff we just talked about with the offense. So hopefully we continue to do it. I think Tua is great in it. We saw it, and I'm very excited about it. So let's get into the fan Q&A, where we answer fans' questions. We have, 35 questions to answer today. This first question comes from JackPack18. He says, we saw the difference having Gaskin at running back makes. I like him in Ahmed, but still want them to draft a big running back early. I think a solid run game will only help Tua. Your thoughts? Yes, I absolutely agree with that. I think you can add another guy to the room as well. And I think Gaskin's going to be good for a long time, though. I love the way he plays the game, and I think he can be a great change-up back for us for a long time. And if we just add another guy to the rotation, I think it's going to help. I think that would help the offense out a lot. Whether that's Najee Harris or whoever you really want, free agency, whatever it is, I think that would help the running back group a lot. But the Dolphins have a good one for a long time in Gaskin, for sure. This next question comes from Jag Pack. He says, do you get the feeling they are holding back on offense sometimes? Like they don't want stuff on film. They score points against the Niners and Cardinals games, prove that. There's a lot of reasons for that, I think, and I think we touched on a lot of those reasons. It's just we really kind of weren't consistent in the philosophy and the identity of what we wanted to do. And I think, like I said, in this game especially, I think you saw the different, even just in the differences in halves, not just in games. Like in that very game, you saw a very different offense in the second half because we changed what we were doing fundamentally on offense, and hopefully they continue to consistently go back to that. And that's why you kind of see this inconsistencies in the offense. I think and this is something I didn't bring up again when we were breaking down the game, but the only shortcoming of the offense in this game was, I would say, short yardage, and red zone offense wasn't that great, but I loved the play design and everything we did in the red zone. I think the play design and the play calling was awesome. I just thought we could have probably executed a little bit better. But other than that, I thought the offense, like I said, I think we really found something that we can hang our hat on. And I think the offense is going to be a lot better. So, no, I don't think it's because we're holding anything back. I think it's just because we had some inconsistencies in what really was the best thing this offense does, and I think we found that in this game. And it's something that I've talked about a ton, and I think Brian Flores knows that as well, and I think we can just continue to go back to that. This next question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, the hurry-up, up-tempo offense seems to be our weakness when we're on defense. Okay, hold on. Let me get this mic closer to me. I'm going to repeat that because I had the mic a little far away. This next question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, the hurry-up, up-tempo offense seem to be our weakness. When we're on defense, teams that do that quick hit passes, like screens and slants, how do we remedy this? So let me repeat the question because I didn't really understand it. He says, the hurry-up, up-tempo offenses seem to be our weakness. Disagree with that. So I disagree with this, KC Fanatic. I don't know if you're referencing this game because, again, we only allowed 7 points. We only allowed in the second half, again, with 7 minutes to go in the fourth. They had -8 total yards. So I don't think that's a weakness at all. I think a natural counter to what we do with that blitz package is that stuff. And that's why you see it work sometimes, but I don't think it's a weakness of the team at all. I think, to be honest with you, if you go up-tempo against this defense, you're going to have a lot of problems. Because usually an up-tempo or 2-minute drill style offenses, you're passing the majority of the time. Everything that you brought up here are all passes. So I think, to be honest with you, I would say that is not a weakness of the team, but that is something that teams will do against that package because it is, like I said, a natural counter to some of those blitzes that we run. But I don't think it's a weakness. And I think I would disagree with that, Fanatic Casey. I think to bring up to kind of to expand on that a little bit on this point here. I think when you run against teams like Kansas City or even Cincinnati that have gifted receivers like Boyd and Higgins and AJ Green, you do run a lot of a risk because a lot of the times those guys are one-on-one. And if you can get the ball out quick, you really allow them to kind of run after the catch. And in this game, that rarely happened. It did happen twice. Higgins had a nice play. And Boyd had one for a touchdown, but it was they only allowed 7. So from the majority of the game, those guys really didn't do anything. Higgins only had 50 yards. So again, I wouldn't say it's a weakness, but you do run the risk against more talented receivers when you go against them. And I think in this game, especially in the second half, you could see some of those halftime adjustments being like, okay, we're just going to play coverage. And they literally couldn't do anything after that. And we still blitzed them in the second half, especially when they were backed up on their own end zone. You saw some blitzes there. But again, to kind of expand on what you're saying, like when we play the Chiefs, which I'm so excited for, because I'm so excited to see Brian Flores versus Andy Reid and this defense versus that offense, because the best thing they do is pass. The best thing that we do is pass defend. And obviously, Brian has had some success against Mahomes as a defensive coordinator. So I'm so excited for this game. It's at home. This game is amazing. But to kind of bring up what you're talking about, Fanatic, is with some of that quick hitting stuff. When you're going against an offense that has Tyreek Hill, McCole Hardman, and some of these guys that are so good after the catch and so fast and kind of live off of one-on-one matchups, I don't think you're going to see that package against the Chiefs. If they do it, they'd be crazy to do it. And I'm excited to see what he does do against it, but I don't think you can do it against those type of teams. And I think, again, and this, you do bring up a good point, the adjustment in the second half in the Bengals game, since they do have talented receivers, was like, okay, we have a better front than they do. Let's just rush, do some creative stuff up front with some stunts, and really just take advantage of the talent mismatch in the front of the offensive line and defensive line. And that's kind of what the adjustment was in the second half, and they couldn't really move. So I think you can do it. And they're really good at doing it, and they're really good at executing it, and they're very creative with it. But when you do run against like these top-tier offenses, or if they do have a talented receiver core that is good after the catch and has a lot of speed, or they're a little bit more physical after the catch, like maybe like an A.J. Brown or a Higgins or a Jarvis Landry or someone like that, you do run a risk of sometimes that happening. So we'll see what the Dolphins do against the Chiefs, but to answer your question, Fanatic, it's definitely not a weakness. Like I said, the quick hitting screens and slants and stuff like that are, again, a natural counter. And I think what the Dolphins are taught to kind of counter that stuff is, hey, if they run a quick slant on you, just be conservative. Don't try to go after the ball. We're not going to press. I think that, and you just make the tackle. Because what the Dolphins really want to do when they blitz and they do give you that amoeba front is sometimes they drop out. So sometimes they want to give you the illusion that you can throw that slant and they'll drop someone back in that lane. So that's why you kind of see they're kind of coached to do that. They're kind of coached, okay, don't play super aggressive here. Just come and make it the tackle if you have to. And we'll live with that. Because that makes the offense have to kind of work for it, and they constantly have to kind of go against that front and throw into it. And they rarely, offenses run the same type of patterns on back-to-back plays. So I think we kind of just broke it down. Again, I don't think it's a weakness, but I think it's, again, a natural thing that you do. It's a natural weakness of that defense. And I think the Dolphins are coached to not play that so aggressive and just come up and make the tackle a lot of the time. So that's why you see them as, I guess, open on some of those plays. This next question comes from SM. He says, too many drives end with a punt or field goal. How do we fix this? Again, I think the only weakness or the only negative part in the second half offensively was, hey, I would like to finish some of those drives in the red zone. I would say this, though. Chan Gailey is very good in the red zone with some of his play designs. And there was not one play, run or pass, in the red zone that I was mad about. I thought every single one of them were really nicely designed. You would just like a little bit better execution on those plays. And, if it throws a little bit lower here, or Devontae Barker makes that catch against William Jackson, which is a kind of a tough catch, but he's made way tougher in his career. Or Tua pulls the ball out and hits Adam Shaheen, who was wide open on an RPO. He kind of messed that up. He kind of misread that. Again, the play designs were great. It just, you would like a little bit better execution. So the Dolphins missed some layups that they usually hit. So I don't think it's too big of a deal. And Chan Gailey is really, really good in the red zone. So I would just say, to answer your question, SM, too many drives that end with a field goal. Not really a punt in the second half. We talked about how to get more consistency on offense earlier, but how to finish harder in the red zone. Just hit the layups, execute a little bit better. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, hey, Skaggs, who's the most underrated Dolphin right now? My vote would go to Nick Needham. Nick's a great pick for that. He's one of the better slot corners, in my opinion, in the league. I think he proves that every single week. It's so weird that he didn't start earlier in the year. And really, he didn't start on the outside either. I think the Dolphins kind of know where he's best at. But I don't think he started in the slot in the first 3 games of the year. I could be wrong about that. Maybe he was injured. I don't know what the heck was going on with that. But Nick Needham is very good at what he does. And shout out to Noah Igbenogany, who did a really good job when X got kicked out of the game. He did a really nice job on AJ Green. So, Yeah, I think to answer your question, I think Nick Needham's a great pick for most underrated. Jerome Baker's a great pick. I don't think he gets enough love for what he does for this defense. Landon Roberts, I think he's a fan favorite, so I wouldn't count him. I think another really good pick who doesn't get enough love is Raekwon Davis. He's very good. He doesn't get a lot of penetration, but he doesn't get moved either. He really allows those linebackers to shoot gaps and really open up holes for them to kind of come through clean. He's really good at that. He's basically just a really good nose tackle, defensive tackle. I would say those are some of the guys that kind of come up when I think about underrated. And Christian Wilkins too. I think we kind of take him for granted as well. He made, you could kind of tell the difference when we got to see the difference when he's in the lineup and when he's not in the lineup. The sixth question comes from Jay. He says, have you ever seen a coach defend his players like Coach Flo did on Sunday? Only in college basketball, I would say. It's very rare that you see that in football, and especially not in the NFL. I think we all love that about him. It was a great moment. I think we were all kind of hyped up watching the game when that happened. I know I was, and I think not only does it set a fire under your team, not like they needed it because they always play with their hair on fire for Coach Flo. It's just an all-around great thing. I mean, it just makes us love Coach Flo even more. That we already love him to death now. I mean, good Lord, he's provided us a great season. He's a great head coach. He's a great game planner. He's got a great scheme. He's just great. That's all I have to say about him. He's just great. That was another great moment for him, and I think it got us all very excited. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He says, Isaiah Ford got released. Should we pick him up again? Actually, no. I think Isaiah Ford probably is he's the most natural slot receiver we would have on the team, but I'm kind of want to see what Lynn Bowden continues to do in that role because he looked good there, and I think he provides a really nice after the catch player for us there that Isaiah Ford really just doesn't have. So I kind of want to continue to see what Lynn Bowden has. This next question comes from Eric. He says, what do you realistically see us ending up record-wise? I never predict that. I'm very superstitious about that, so I'm not going to speak on that. So let's just move on from that one. Sorry, Eric. I've never, ever really done that. This next question comes from Jaden. He says, what do we need to do to beat the Chiefs? I think you have to play you got to somehow keep Mahomes in the pocket, which is impossible. And I think you got to play a lot of coverage. And I think the best I don't think you can play zone coverage against them because he's just going to scramble and find holes in your zone. But if you can keep him in the pocket and play good man-to-man coverage, don't get too aggressive on defense and make them work for it, I think we have the personnel to do that for sure. And I think we can do that better than pretty much every single team in the league when it comes to playing man coverage and making teams work for it. And we're really good. Obviously, we're, I think, the best scoring defense or second best scoring defense in the league right now for a reason because it's hard to score on us. So I think, how do you beat the Chiefs? You got to make them work for it, and you got to make Mahomes stay in the pocket. You got to, like I said, I think those are the two things you got to do. And hopefully you can get off hopefully that leads to them punting on third down and getting off the field on third down. And just limit the big plays as much as possible. If they're going to score, and hopefully they don't, but you have to make every point that they do get hard, and that's what happens when you play really good coverage. So, and you just hope for a mistake, because most of the times when you add up plays like that, and you constantly have to, especially with how Mahomes is and how that offense is, I think they kind of get impatient sometimes, and they do kind of force stuff sometimes, and you've seen that against the Raiders and some of these other teams, and a lot of their losses, you've seen them do that. So you just got to limit the big plays, make them work for it, and keep Mahomes in the pocket. I think that's what you have to do against the Chiefs. This next question comes from Corporate Gamer. He says, I think we should draft a running back in the second or third round this year. I agree. I think that would be a good move. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, what do you think... Excuse me. He says, Skaggs, what do you think was the biggest jerk in the Miami-Cincinnati game, Mike Thomas or Zach Taylor? I would probably say the refs. I don't know what they were doing. they had a lot of weird calls this game. And yeah, like not kicking Mike Thomas out was one of the like Mike Thomas doesn't get kicked out for a repeat offense, but Xavier Howard gets kicked out for pushing someone in the shoulder. Like I'm gonna go with the rest on that one. I think they kind of mishandled a lot of that. I'm happy that nobody got suspended for it though, which is awesome, especially Devontae Parker, because he kind of went crazy at the end there. But yeah, so if I would say probably Mike Thomas and the refs because they kind of got that wrong. All right, this next question comes from HYSY. He says, "Hey Skaggs, love the show, man. Keep it up. I don't understand." Let me repeat that. I was going a little bit too fast. This question comes from HYSY. He says, "Hey Skaggs, love the show. Thank you." He says, "Keep it up. I don't understand why we try to run the ball like we have Saquon in the backfield. I like Gaskin, but we shouldn't rely on him so much. We need to have a pass-first mentality in order to beat the Chiefs." Your thoughts? I agree with the pass-first mentality thing, but I love the way we ran the football with all of the motions and some of the actions that we had in the backfield, all of the motions pre-snap. I think it just gives us the defense a lot to think about pre-snap, and I think it helps us open up running lanes, and we can do so much off of it and keep teams off balance. So I like the way we ran the football in that game, but I do agree that the offense shouldn't run through Gaskin. It should run through the up-tempo offense. This question comes from Jerry. He says, this is more of a statement, but Mike Thomas, he says, is trolling us on Instagram. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know anything about that whole situation, but I don't know what he'd be trolling about. That's for sure, because those are clearly two cheap shots. This next question comes from Ethan. He says, "Are you planning on collaborating with any other YouTubers? And how about a face reveal?" I definitely would love to collaborate with other people. That would be super fun. But in terms of a face reveal, definitely not anytime soon. This next question comes from David. He says, "What consequences do you anticipate for Howard and Devontae Parker? Both of them if they were out next week would be disastrous." I think, well, we know now that they're fine. They just got fined. I don't think X got fined, but Devontae Parker definitely got fined. This next question comes from Beef. He says, "What are your thoughts on Devontae Parker getting fined but not suspended for punching a few players and knocking out a Bengals coach?" So there you go. Like I said before, I don't think he should. If Mike Thomas doesn't get suspended, then Devontae Parker definitely doesn't get suspended. And yeah, so I think, and not only that, but we all are Dolphins fans, so it's awesome that he wasn't suspended. This next question comes from Beef. Oh man, this is a good one. It's a long one, but it's good. He says, "Hey Skaggs, it seems there was no love lost from the Bengals game last year. It was a pretty chippy game that got heated. The dirty hits to Grant really didn't fly. Tyler Boyd gets rough with Howard and Jones. Then a bench-clearing brawl happened. Biggest takeaway I got from this game was the Dolphins really stood up for each other, and are not going to take any of this from anybody. Respect to Coach Flo for charging the field. Probably wanted a piece of the action. Zach Taylor seems to have no discipline over his team." He says, "My question is, do you think this altercation needed to happen to see if this Dolphins team wasn't going to take crap from anyone? Feel free to sound off." Yeah, I think you can. I mean, this defense especially, this team is a physical team. They always flying around playing with. They love the game. You can tell they love playing for each other. They love playing for Coach Flo. And yeah, I mean, I think that kind of was a great example of that. And I think we were all excited. I mean, you could hear the crowd go crazy. It was. I think it was a great moment. And thank God nobody got suspended for it, because you could, it's not like something like that hasn't happened before. And I'm glad that the league probably took into account, like, hey, this team, it's a good team. I don't think we need to suspend anybody for it. I think we can clearly see this wasn't like malice or something out of control. There was reasoning for it, I guess. It wasn't like this team just did it. They were definitely provoked, and in a bad way too. I mean, not only did Devontae Parker, obviously lost his cool, but he was hit first in that situation. So we didn't instigate anything. We didn't cause any of the issues. So I'm glad that nobody got suspended. But yeah, it was a great moment for all of us fans. And I think it just kind of is a great example of this team loves to play for this coach and loves to play with each other. This next question comes from Mark. He says, who would you draft for Tua in this draft? Pitts and Smith, Chase and Smith, Smith and Harris. Although I would take Harris in the second round. How about you? I think I would pick Pitts and Smith. I think those two, to add another tight end and obviously a playmaking receiver that Tua has passed to before and had a lot of success with in college. Like, I think with Pitts and Gesicki and Smith and Parker and Preston and maybe you add another piece in free agency, that would be awesome. That would be amazing. This next question comes from SM. He says, it looks to me like Tua likes the big body receiver types like Mike Gesicki or Preston Williams, but we haven't tried to bring any extra big body types. Would you consider this moving forward? No, I think to answer your question, SM, no. I think this team needs a different type of receiver, and I think adding someone like Donovan Smith or someone in free agency or Pitts and someone like that, I think that would benefit the offense, just to kind of get a different type of a playmaker in there. This next question comes from TR3 MC. He says, great win, Skaggs. Do you think Miami should pursue Devontae Smith from Alabama for Tua next year if he's available? Absolutely. I think the receiver from LSU, though, is better. I think he's going to be probably a really good player. I like him a little bit more, but yeah, any of those guys would be awesome. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey, Skaggs, I just saw on the Dolphins schedule that we're going to play the Raiders on December 26th on Saturday Night Football. I know it's still 2 weeks away, but it will be a very important game close to the end of the season. Besides, it being an away game, do you think we have an advantage playing on Saturday Night Football? I don't know if we have an advantage necessarily, but yeah, it's going to be... I think, the last time we played Saturday Night Football, it was awesome. And yeah, I think it's exciting to play on Saturday night, especially a day after Christmas. That's really cool, and it's going to be fun. We're setting up for a very entertaining December. The Dolphins haven't had a team like this in a long time. Like, if this team played the 2016 team, it wouldn't even be close. So I'm very excited about this December. This next question comes from David. He says, we're a good team for our talent level. The season is a success, but I really can't see us competing with the elite teams like the Chiefs. Too many holes. What's our ceiling for this season? So I disagree with this question, David. I think we can definitely compete with the elite teams, for sure. I think our defense is elite. I think if you look at the numbers, that backs it up. Yardage-wise, it's not great. But if you look at where I think the best scoring defense currently in the league, our third down percentage defensively is awesome. Our point differential is the best in our division and one of the best in the NFL. And all of that is because of our defense. And we're really good. I think we have the longest streak for takeaways in the league right now active. So when you take into all of that into account, this defense is elite, and I think the numbers back that up. So I think as long as you have an elite unit, you can compete with the elite teams. So I think, yes, we can compete with them because the defense is elite. I think a lot of people bring up the run issues defensively. And it would be interesting to see us match up with an elite running team like the Titans or Browns, and to see how the team would play. But I would push back on that a little bit. If you look at when this team has to stop the run game, it does. And especially if you don't have a mobile quarterback, I think this team is significantly better against the run. If you have someone who kind of is a sitting duck back there, I think it's easier for the Dolphins to defend the run a little bit. So I would say, yes, this team definitely can compete with the elite teams because of its defense, to answer your question. But offensively, that would be the only thing I could see getting in the way against elite teams. If we can just continue to do some of the stuff that we're really good at, and play through that up-tempo offense, I don't think the offense is going to be something that gets in the way, I would say. But to answer your question, to get through the elite teams, I think it's good enough to compete with them. But to get through them, I think you need to add a little bit, two or three more pieces there offensively. But I could definitely, I could see this team beating the Steelers. I could see this team beating the Colts. I could see this team beating the Titans and stuff. I could see it happening for sure. It's not like, I could never see that happen. No, I could definitely see that happen for sure. So yeah, I think the Dolphins definitely can compete with those teams. To answer your question, David. So I think I disagree a little bit there. This next question comes from Richard. He says, how about Lynn Bowden as the Dolphins slot receiver? How about the Dolphins re-signing Isaiah Ford, who was waived by the Patriots? Yeah, I think I kind of, to answer your question, Richard, I kind of want to stick with Lynn. I think I'm excited to see what he can do. And there's a lot more stuff because he's a better athlete you can do with him. So I kind of, and it seems to me that he's starting to get kind of comfortable with the offense and the playbook. This next question comes from SM. He says, hello, Mr. Skaggs. Please talk about how Coach Flo having to be held back from the fight against the Cincinnati players can possibly galvanize this team and coaching staff to the point where the guys will be willing to run through a brick wall for him. I saw very little coverage on it. Do you think this might be what we needed to wake the sleeping giant? I think the sleeping giant is already awake. Like, you can tell, like I said, every single game this team plays really hard. It flies around. You can tell they have a lot of fun. And I think that kind of just backed it up. And this is the reason why they are the way that they are. And is because of Flo. And I think all it does is help the situation for sure. And yeah, Flo is awesome. Flo is amazing. This next question comes from Beef. He says, hey Skaggs, I wanted to post this question last week, but it was too late to send it. And it's just the top running backs for next year's draft, considering we need a lot of work at the position. Travis Etienne, Clemson. Najee Harris, Alabama. Kenny Gainwell, Memphis. Javonte Williams, North Carolina. Hubbard, Oklahoma State. Zamir White, Georgia. He said those were just a few, and we may or may not get to the top ones in this draft. Who do you think Miami should draft or predict who they'll get next year, or is there a running back the Dolphins should get that's not on this list? I think to answer your question, the guy that I like the most is Najee Harris. I really like him. I like his game. I think he's super versatile, bigger back, really elusive, and he's really good in the pass game. So I just really like Najee Harris. I just like his game a lot. So he's my favorite, I would say. But ETN is really good as well. And the other guys I need to watch a little bit more of. But I really like Najee Harris. This next question comes from Scar. He says, what's up, Skaggs? I know the offense has not been the best in the last two games, but are you willing not to make the playoffs just to see what we have in Tua? Are you hoping we make a push for the playoffs? Me personally, I would like to see what we have in Tua. I don't see us winning the Super Bowl. Making the playoffs is always a big deal, and I think it would do a lot for Flo and just the organization as a whole. So yeah, I definitely want to make the playoffs, but you saw how great Tua played. We can definitely make it with Tua, and I'm so excited to see him continue to play in this up-tempo offense because I think he's going to be great in it. The next question comes from Fabiola. He says, what do you think how do you think the game between us and the Chiefs will go? Do you think we'll be close, or is it just going to be a blowout? I personally think we're going to shock the world with a big dub, but I want to know your opinion. I don't know what the outcome of the game is going to be, but I love the way we match up with the team, the Kansas City Chiefs, because like I said earlier in the video, I think the way you beat them is make them work for everything that they get. And I think this defense can definitely do that. And I think we can keep him in the pocket because of some of our athletes at defensive end. And again, we have a really good coach in Brian Flores who's really good at game planning. So, I like the matchup. It's an amazing game because of the circumstances and the repercussions of if we win that game. I mean, Dolphins fandom is going to go insane. So, yeah, I can't wait for this game for sure. It's going to be awesome. This last question comes from Adrian. He says, sup, Skaggs? Unlike most people, I think the Dolphins will hang in there with Kansas City and beat them. It's just one of those longtime fan intuition things. It's a statement game that they'll play relentlessly, throwing caution to the wind. Am I looking at war? War? How about you? Throw caution to the wind. Okay, so I don't know. I don't know if that's a reference at the end there, or maybe I'm just missing it or misunderstanding it. I don't know. But I agree. I'm very excited about the game. I've been hyped up since, especially after the Jets game. I cannot wait for it. It's going to be awesome. And we have a real chance to make a huge statement. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I can't wait to see you guys next week and really break down the Chiefs game. It's going to be awesome.